So, as I said, Celia is our speaker. She's a member of the local branch here, and the topic is, how do we get rid of the Tories? So, as I said, very relevant.
Yeah, it's a good day to be doing this. Be doing this talk and what glasses to wear. Because isn't it? We should celebrate the victories when we get them, shouldn't we? Thank goodness they're not going to take these people to Rwanda, and it is a testament, I think, to the tenacity of people demonstrating. It's a testament, I also have to say, to the PCS trade union, the people who took a stand on that. What a brilliant combination. And also, I think, a testimony really to the correct courage of the refugees themselves. I mean, what a thing to have to go through. How shameful is all of that, and how absolutely and utterly disgraceful. We have a victory. They're going to be back though, aren't they? But it's not just that. I feel like, maybe I should have a great big red banner or something, because actually, what's next week, we have a big challenge, don't we? 40,000, potentially 40,000 workers are going to be on strike next week. They could bring the country to a standstill, and it's really scaring the Tories. Thanks to the whatever Tory entity it was, I've forgotten his name, whinging about how the workers are holding the country to ransom. Well, look, come on, they've held us to ransom. 11% pay rise, fuel going through the roof, all of the rest of it. And all this stuff about, high pay. Well, good luck to workers that do have good pay. But actually, of course, most rail workers, there's rail workers on £11 an hour, when the CEO of Network Rail says here, over £500,000 salary. Well, come off it. So, when I think about, the parties at number 10, should Johnson go for that? Of course he should, but it's not just the damn parties, is it? And I could spend 20 minutes on just, trashing the National Health Service, the lack of PPE for health workers who died, actually, some of them, and yet they can't even give them a living wage. Johnson should go for his racism, his sexism, his homophobia, the attacks on trans people. Effectively, we're poorer by £400 a month. Rents are soaring. You could go on and on, couldn't you? You could go on and on, couldn't you? It's not just Johnson, of course, it's the whole damn lot of them. Hunt, Jeremy Hunt, Liz Truss. And as for Priti Patel, words fail me, quite honestly, doesn't happen on. They're disgusting individuals. But they're not just that. They do what they do because they stand for a class. They stand for the rich and the powerful, what I would call the ruling class. And the Tory party, of course, have always been the party of the ruling class and the rich and powerful. But in Britain and across Europe, some people won the vote, and now so this ruling class party has to somehow try to appeal to workers. They do it by claiming to stand for national unity, flag waving, claims of standing for family values, extremely hypocritical, by the way, and of course the racism that they throw in as well. They've used arguments around empire, haven't they, to claim that workers have some kind of stake in the oppression of other nations like Ireland, India, and so on. And of course, I think that we have to therefore think about what is happening next week, what is happening right now, in the context of a vile capitalist system, a system that is for profit, not human need, in which, and it's an international system, let's not forget. And I think that we have to say that it's a system that is in which imperialism and war is absolutely built into it. Maybe we should come back to that, on questions of Ukraine and so on. I think that, we have to, I don't know if Johnson thinks he's some kind of Churchill character or anything. £32 billion in an aid package to Ukraine, and I think we can all unite in our disgust at what is happening, that Russian invasion of Ukraine and all the rest of it. But do we really think we want two nuclear superpowers using Ukraine to square up against each other in a proxy war? £32 billion have been sent for long-range rockets. We have to consider the danger of this situation and consider what is going on there, I think. So, the booing of Johnson at the Jubilee Jamboree, well, it was a sweet moment, really, wasn't it? So maybe not so united after all when they were all going on about community and then don't we all love the Queen and everything like that. And I think the thing about the parties, of course, is it showed the Tories' contempt for us, the ordinary people, in a time pandemic and all of the rest of it. But so I think we have to be clear that the Tories in a tight spot, and they are in a tight spot, they have got problems now here, they are going to resort to racist scapegoating to divide people. It's the thing they use time after time. So Johnson does have a crisis. He's survived for now, okay, but over 40% of his own MPs voted to get rid of him. That's worse than May actually or Thatcher got. They had to go in the end. I don't make predictions. I don't think it's worth it. Let's see what happens with the Wakefield by-election. Wakefield, remember, was the one where they took a Labour seat, was one of the places where they took a Labour seat. And Johnson's role has been to push for a populist appeal to workers, talking about getting Brexit done and, appealing to people actually quite understandably and rightly angry that people seem to be ignoring their vote to get out of the EU. Talked about levelling up. Well, how's that gone? Well, not very well, actually, let's be honest. And so I think that Johnson has to deal on the one hand with a section of the Tories who are angered by any assistance, however meagre, to workers for COVID. Actually, most of that so-called assistance went to Boss's profits, actually, to be honest, let's be honest. So he's angered other sections of British business. His, excuse my language here, was his fuck business speech didn't go down so well. He is presiding over a split party, a party full of tensions, and those tensions will not go away as they try to find a place for British capitalism in the modern world. We haven't got an empire anymore, tough luck. And I think that, so what for us, we have to think, all right, what do we do in this situation? And I think as socialists, what I think we have to say is we have to argue for struggle from below, that we want Johnson and the rest of the Tories out on our terms, on workers' terms. And I want to really think a little bit about what this means, because I think that when we think about the questions of racism, other questions of oppression, sexism and so on and so forth, these are class issues as well, as alongside questions of pay and conditions and so on. So let's think about a little bit about what that means, because I think, I said we need to struggle from below, and I think that Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the opposition, I'm reliably informed, is frankly helping me quite a lot with this argument. I think the leader of the Labour Party seems to be sitting there thinking, well, if I just sit there and hope, then maybe nobody will like Johnson and I can win the next election that way. But to be honest with you, the polls are telling us that that's, even in his own terms, that's not really going to work. But what does Keir Starmer offer us anyway? He's already condemned the rail workers' strikes. He's there trying to break the left in the Labour Party, break the anti-war movement and all of those sorts of things. This is absolutely not very helpful to us at all. But I think also, it's good to see, in France, I was looking at what's happening with the French elections and the coalition around the French left-wing guy, Mélenchon, doing quite well in the polls. It goes to show, as Corbyn I think showed, that when you put an alternative, people do want to rally around it. But I think we also do have to say that actually I think there are massive limits to reformism, massive limits to trying to bring reforms from above. And I think that, I remember in Greece, Syriza came in with great left-wing, they were going to do all these things. The European Union, the European Court, Bank and all of the rest of it said, actually you're having austerity, and even though the Greek workers said, no, we don't want austerity, we're voting against it, they got austerity, and Syriza, the left-wing party, caved in. And I think that therefore we have to really consider, that's why I say we need struggle from below and to carry on struggling, whatever happens. And I think that, again, let's not have any talk about going back to the real Labour Party, because even if we take the best, what people might consider the best of it, after the Second World War, the Attlee government that brought in, nationalisation, nationalised, so many industries, railways included, and the electricity and gas and so on. Mainly that was the bosses benefited. They wanted that, to be honest. They wanted the taxpayer to fund the massive reinvestment that they needed after the war. That doesn't mean we don't want a return. We do want renationalisation. Actually, we do want renationalisation of the fuel companies as a first step to actually starting to say we want control over fuel prices. But actually, that Attlee government, by the way, also brought in the atom bomb, developed the atom bomb in secret. They used the military against strikes. They did trade deals. I like this. I don't like this. Trade deals with the new apartheid South Africa. You know, seriously, people. So I think we need to be saying that. This is not the really where we need to put our hope. And I think that I should also say that in the post-war boom, they threw us some crumbs, didn't they? They gave us the National Health Service. Well, we fought for the National Health Service, and we should fight for it again. We should fight to keep that. Whatever its limitations, we have to fight for that. But I think the main Labour aim is to run British capitalism, and I don't think for us that's good enough, really. So if it's not electoral politics, what are we going to do? And I think that in Parliament you can't challenge the power of the ruling class. And I think that was underlined really when we think about the role of the state, exemplified I think by the role of the courts. Because actually when we took the question of sending people to Rwanda to the courts, actually the courts said, actually yes, fine, yeah, you can do that. And I think it's because the people fought back that has, to some, actually the general rights ruling has not yet been changed, may not be changed. But I think that therefore it's struggle from below. That is what has won us this reprieve at least. And I think, Johnson and his mates, they're not the only lawbreakers, are they? When they say it's one rule for them and another for us, it's absolutely true. What about the P&O bosses when they just brazenly broke the law? Didn't care, yeah, we knew we broke the law. We don't care. We sacked a lot of them. We didn't care. Blair and his illegal wars, don't even start me. So I think, again, so what can we do? What can we do about all of these things? And I thought I'd think a little bit about how we beat the Tories before, and I thought particularly about how we beat Margaret Thatcher and how we beat a previous Tory government in 1972 and 1974. Just Thatcher to start with. I wish that it had been the miners that had beaten Thatcher, actually, but actually that anger remained. And when they brought in what it was called the poll tax, the council tax is what has replaced it. The poll tax was a tax that you paid to your local authority, and whoever you are, however rich or poor you were supposed to be paying the same. And people said, no, that's not fair, and we're not doing it. And we refused to pay the poll tax. It ended in rioting in Trafalgar Square. Thatcher was gone. The woman that they said could never be beaten, actually. They took her away to a funny old world, Okay. 72 and 74, we beat the Tories with strikes, and it's something they haven't forgotten, and we shouldn't forget either. So at the start of 72, the miners, they used their local organisation rather than relying on their full-time officials, and they set up what they called flying pickets, delegations of workers going to other pits to call them out, arguing with them to come out. And eventually the strike was won because they were of the sort of key pit, the battle that sort of people might have heard of Partygate. It was a coke plant. It needed to be closed in order for the strike to be effective. It was closed when thousands of workers from the nearby factories walked out and joined the miners. The miners won a 20% pay rise. We could do with one of them, couldn't we? And when we think about the laws that the Tories have brought in now to do, to restrict the right to protest and all of those sorts of things. Well, there's a little lesson in what we'd have to do about that as well from the Pentonville dockers. They went on strike. Dockers were imprisoned for breaking the anti-union laws that Heath had brought in, the Tories had brought in. The response of workers was more flying pickets, more breaking the law. And actually they even forced the TUC, the trades union umbrella body, to call a general strike. The dockers were released, and there were more strikes in 1974. The government had to run an election, this is what it's based on, who runs the country. Well, people said, well, not you lot anyway. Now, I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from all of that, and people may want to bring some more of them out, because I'm going to have to shut up quite soon. But let's celebrate our victories and learn from them. But I think we also have to think about what our aspirations are as well, actually. Why do we have to keep fighting these same battles? Why do we have to keep fighting again and again? against racism, against sexism. Again, why did the miners have to go through all of that to get a half-decent pay rise? And I think that, I started by talking about capitalism, and I think that therefore we have to think about how do we get rid of capitalism altogether. So I think, on the one hand, I think we should raise our aspirations and think about the kind of society that we want to win, but also I think we also have to say that every single struggle in the here and now is also informed by our understanding that we want to change society and how we're going to change society. I said we need change from below. I think that we need a genuine democracy where ordinary working people run and control society. Every battle matters and every win matters right now in the here and now, because they come back, don't they? When they talk about what they call culture wars, the attacks on abortion rights, and all of the rest, the attack on Me Too as well, I think as well. And so I think we know everything we've got, we've had to fight for. We say we liberate ourselves. And I think also, what do we want to wait for the next election for? The crisis in the cost of living is now. The deportations are now. Climate disaster is now. So I think when we talk about defeating the Tories on our terms, we want them out on a wave of strikes and demonstrations so that whoever is the next government has something to think about. I mentioned the poll tax. We've got another Tory government, but they have to get rid of the poll tax, And so I think it's good that there is an uptick in strikes. And how fantastic the rail strikes are happening. 40,000 workers could be out. They could bring the country to a stop. And so I think, but I think also we have to say, I hope that these strikes next week are not the end. They need to be the beginning. The demonstration on Saturday needs to be the beginning. And I think we also have to say that every struggle needs to be linked. The anti-racist struggle, the climate struggles, all of these have to be linked together. And I think that, capitalism is a vile system, and sometimes you can feel quite despairing, I think. But struggle breaks out all around the place. In Sudan, there is an ongoing struggle. In Egypt, 10 years ago, when they threw out the despot Mubarak, started with textile strikes. I was reading about struggles in India from 2019. Mass strikes were followed by demonstrations. They were sparked by an increase in transport costs. But the cry was on the streets, it's not 30 pesos, it's 30 years. There's no reason why we can't have that here as well. So I think that there's one other thing, I've slagged off the Labour Party. I've said, to be honest, the left can't organise in the Labour Party. How do we organise them? What should we be doing? And so on. I think that, we can and should join trade unions. We should get stuck into campaigns. We all need to do that. But I think within these, I want to, revolutionary socialists working together can also play a key role in helping to shape the movements and talk about the way in which they should be going. And I really wanted to really end with a couple of points, really. I'm a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. We are a revolutionary party. We want to be consistent on every single thing. We're not having racists and sexists and all of this sort of stuff. We stand with trans rights and all of these sorts of things. So we want to organise the organisers, if you like. Because I think if we look around the world, we can see that the Tories can pull people. And so we can see an unevenness, if you like, in people's consciousness or people's ideas. Some people are pulled by Tories more than others. Some people, people who like to celebrate the royals may also be people who want to stop the trashing of the health service. And then there's some people like us who are not standing for any of it. And we're the kind of people that we in the SWP want to organise. We want to be part of everything, every single struggle. If I'm replacing where I'm, yes. So I think that party needs to be built right now. There's no point us turning up in a revolutionary situation and saying, hi, we're here and we know all about what to do. For one thing, we wouldn't actually, and for another, people would say, well, who are you? We need to be there now, talking about what we need to do now. Every struggle counts. Every struggle builds towards a bigger movement. I talked about the strikes in 1972. They didn't come from nowhere, actually. There had been previous disputes that hadn't been quite so successful, but had built solidarity networks. And that's what I think, so that's what we need to be thinking about as well now. I was on the demonstration for FE strikers on Friday. There was an RMT worker there was a rail worker there. Absolutely right, that's the right thing we do. We need much more of that. So I think the final thing I wanted to say therefore is in this vile capitalist system that needs oppression as well to survive, I want to just say, what do we do now? So what we do now, the first thing we need to do now is get on the demonstration on the 18th of June, get stuck into supporting the rail workers' strikes. And I also think we have to think about fusing the movement. What does that mean? What I mean is climate activists, trans activists, LGBT plus activists, Black Lives Matter activists, refugee campaigners should all support the rail workers. And the rail workers need to support the refugees. That's what I mean by fusing the campaigns. That's what I mean by building a movement that can take on the Tories and actually can start to be fit to start to take on the system as well.